Hello, welcome to Miss Nellie's New Year's special. This is not going to be as big as the Christmas one by far. I hope not. Just a few stories to tell and a couple recipes, and we wish you all a happy New Year's. And here we go. And for one of our stories, I have it from my grandmother, Ruth Clark Doan's book that she had wrote. And I'm just going to start here and there reading out of it. It tells a little bit of our history and some really interesting stories that she was able to get through my great aunts. So we're going to start with chapter 1, and it's called From Yonder Days. James Clark was my great-grandpa. He was born in Logan County, Kentucky, of Welsh nationality. He married Frances Boyd. She too was born in Kentucky. There were 11 children born to this marriage. James was a school teacher, and his efforts were to teach his own children as well as his students. Thomas Hugh was James Clark's first son. He was born in 1806 in Kentucky, and he married a girl named Rebecca. Their second child was a daughter born in 1810, also in Kentucky, and her name was Nancy. The third child was Anthony Wayne Clark. He was my great-grandpa and the second son of James Clark. He was a handsome young fellow with red hair and baby blue eyes, always in vogue with a narrow beard of carefully trimmed red whiskers across his chin. He was born in 1808 in Spa, Logan County, Kentucky, and he was married to Sarah, her nickname was Sally Cook, daughter of John Cook, in August of 1833. In Tennessee is where they got married. Sarah was born in 1809 in South Carolina. Her parents were from England, and they had acquired a plantation, and they were quite prosperous in their endeavors. Stories were often told about Grandma Sarah, who would watch over some of the slave children, slipping in and out of the woods, and knowing that they were hungry, she would secretly bring them donut holes, dinner, mashed potatoes, anything she could to make sure that they were not hungry. She would also swish them away so that nobody would know. Sarah's folks were terribly upset with her for marrying Anthony Wayne Clark. They carried on the notion that Sarah had disgraced them by marrying somebody so poor. Eventually, she was disinherited and disowned. She went her own way and made her own way. There were 8 children born to the family of Anthony and Sally. John J. Clark was born in 1836, and Elizabeth Jane Clark, 1838. Adeline Felden Clark, 1840, and William Henderson Clark, 1841. Minerva Ann Clark, 1842, and Sarah Caroline Clark, 1845. Joseph Jefferson Clark, which would be Grandpa, 1847. And a little boy named James Clark, who died in infancy at 6 months old. Anthony Wayne was a carpenter and a cabinet maker by trade and guided his sons into the field as well. These people were some of many that Lady Luck had somehow not seen the necessity to endow with great fortunes. Extreme poverty seemed to be the guidance for this family towards the nomadic existence. After Kentucky, they went to Tennessee, then Mississippi and Arkansas. California and Utah were not yet a glimmer. Anthony Wayne decided to take his family and move to Tennessee, from Tennessee to Mississippi. Quite a challenge indeed, for the mode of moving was a mule-drawn wagon down rutty wooded trails that were little more than Indian traces. Hardly having a shadow of knowledge of where they would end their voyage, Grandpa Joseph Jefferson Clark was only a small child, and they called him Little Joe. We have a Little Joe grandson also. He was a very sickly child, and Sally, his mother, laid a great deep fear that he would die along the trail. So she fashioned out of her apron a hammock and was able to successfully carry him all the way to keep him alive. Not too much time was spent in Mississippi before the family moved to Arkansas. They lived there for a while at Clarksville, which was named after the Clarks, before moving to a place called Harrison on Gaither Mountain. It was here another son was born. He was given the name of James, and James was a very tiny baby and very thin and lived only 6 months. Gambling that his utopia laid north of Kentucky, great-grandpa James Clark, his first son, Thomas Hughes, and his wife, Rebecca, and their 2 daughters made their way up to Arkansas, settling in Carroll County. Following was Thomas's sister, Nancy, and her husband. Arkansas was still a territory before 1800, but it would not remain so for much longer. People from the southern states, many of them immigrants from other countries, began their trek to Arkansas. Many settled up the northwest of Arkansas, and by 1835, the area began to have some semblance of an organization. In 1836, before Arkansas was granted statehood, and for some time squatters' rights seemed to be the trend the new settlers would use to claim ownership of a piece of land. It was not too long before it was determined that some kind of law was going to be needed in this area. Much in the way of politicking was to be spurred on many crossroads, and Thomas was usually in the thick of it. In 1834, Thomas made his bid and was elected sheriff of Carroll County. He held this position until 1836, 2 years, when he left his brother-in-law, Nathan Rudd, to complete his term. Thomas had been elected from Carroll County to serve in the House of Representatives from 1844 through 1845, and in 1848, he had the honor of being appointed a judge for the county in a position he held until his death. Thomas and Nathan had earlier taken up homestead land on Gaither Mountain in Carroll County, and Nathan hadn't had the necessary funds to file with. So Thomas made the payment for him, and Nathan agreed to make restitution when the final proof was made. Anthony Wayne, great-great-grandpa, was a brother to Thomas, and he had also taken up some homestead on Gaither Mountain, but wasn't been involved in Tom and Nathan's arrangement. The deadline on the homestead work had to be finished by the fall of 1850. It was also a deadline for Nate to settle with Thomas on the loan. Nathan had not been able to repay the loan, and Thomas, who was a little aggravated, pressed the subject repeatedly, but to no avail. Then, on the morning of October 15, 1850, on his way to work to the mill, Thomas was shot and killed. Suspicion focused immediately on Nathan and his 2 sons. All 3 of them were arrested and stood trial. The court was unable to prove guilt on any of them, and the murder of Thomas H. Clark remained unsolved forever. Vigilante deaths occasionally happened and were attributed only to those who would even up the odds for just the society's sake. Such happenings made one realize some of the reasons for these people's nomadic ways, so they continued to move on, most always dreaming that utopia was just over the next hill. The discovery of golden California and the dreams of a new homeland, along with the government's push to get people to take up land further west, would somehow entice many to give it a go. Like all new land openings, adventure would spawn a few courageous caravan leaders, and in Carroll County, Arkansas, a young fellow by the name of Alexander Fancher had successfully escorted 2 trains of immigrants west to California. Then in early 1857, he made arrangements to escort another caravan west. The dream of those in the train was that at the ending of this journey, a new life would begin. The Fancher train carried friends and relatives of nearby and nearly everyone in Carroll County, as well as several other counties from northern Arkansas. The Fancher caravan train reaching southern Utah at Meadow Mountains met with great disaster, and with it was sorrow so grave at the time itself would never heal. It was here at the monument of the massacre it took place. The documented history tells us from this train of 138 to 140 immigrants, and only 17 children were spared. Many of us would wonder if things would ever or could ever be this horrible again, and the answers would only be yes, as we know in this day and age. But in only numbers, for the grief, tragedies, and destruction, the war between the states would start and would forever touch mankind in such heinous memories. The monument that Grandma Ruth was talking about was Mountain Meadows Massacre down in southern Utah. And it was the Fanchers that were family members that left Arkansas and took some of the family and friends and were massacred. And that's where we're going to leave that story today, and we'll continue on with more history of the Clarks. And next time on our next podcast. So we're going to go on to a recipe, and hold on for that. It's going to be a New Year's cheese ball. So sit still, and here we go. Hi, welcome to Miss Nellie's Kitchen. We are going to do a New Year's Eve cheese ball, and I will show you the recipe. It's fairly easy and fun to do with the kids. I don't have the kids with me right now, but we'll go ahead and do it. We are going to do a crab one, but you can add different things to give it different flavors. So what you'll need is a package of cream cheese, ranch mix. If you're doing crab, cheese, and that's it. You can take some walnuts or pecans or almonds and ground those up if you want to roll them in that. This cheese ball we're going to roll in crab meat and cheese. So the first thing we do is we get out the cream cheese and let it set at room temperature for about, a couple hours, 3 hours. It's not going to hurt it. And then once we get it out of the package in the bowl, it's going to be quite soft, so you can mix it up either with the mix master or your spoon. And once you get it kind of loosened up, you can add the package of the ranch dressing mix to it and stir it up, and then also a handful of cheese, whatever flavor cheese that you want as far as the grated. So pretty much that's what it looks like, just like a little mushier cookie dough. You want to make sure that it's really mixed up good because the powder of the ranch. You can also add Italian powder dressing to it, also onions. We're just going to make it easy this time, and it's still just as good, just as fancy. All right, and after that's all mixed, I had chopped up some of the crab. So we're just going to add half of that to it, because the other half is going to go around it and on top with some cheese to roll it. You mix in the crab. And I have not added garlic or anything. The ranch dressing mix adds all the flavor that you need. Once you get that all mixed, you can pretty much get it all mixed up into a little ball to where you can handle it quite easy. Okay, once we get that all made into a ball, you make it just like a snowball, and you roll it in the cheese and the crab. Make a ball, and it's not very sticky once you get that done. And then I always put it in saran wrap, and you can mold it more once it's all wrapped. So wrap it up good in the saran wrap, and you'll need to chill this for about a couple hours, if not longer, however much you like it. And see, there you go. There's your New Year's Eve cheese ball. Another recipe from Miss Nellie's kitchen. Don't forget to stop into Curly's Lounge tonight for New Year's and wish Amanda and Chris Happy New Year's and enjoy a drink with them. And we're on with our next piece of history, and it's on John's side, the Mitchell history. And I'm going to just read this little story that was provided to me through Susie, one of our family members. And here we go. Carrie Hancock was born in a granary in Kanab, Utah, Sanpete County. She weighed 8 pounds, July 2nd, 1888, Birch Creek. Her mother was Esther Caroline Hancock, and her nickname was Elsa, and her father was Mosiah Hancock. When Elsa was 7 months old, along with Emily, she divorced Mosiah. He was a polygamist and running from the law, so she remarried James Bunting out of Kanab, Utah. He was a shoemaker before he left England, and he was a gardener for Queen Elizabeth at the Palace Gardens. Carrie's great-grandfather, Levi Hancock, great-grandmother Clarisse Reed, had 10 children. Great-grandfather Reed and great-grandfather Levi fought in the Civil War. Richard, Joseph Levi's father, was a drummer boy at Washington's Army. While Carrie was staying at her sister Emily's and David's home, she met Grandpa at a dance. After a short courtship, they were married November 18th, 1914, in the St. George Temple. 2 weeks after the marriage, her mother, Elsa, died of meningitis. And in November 29th, 1914, at 49 years old. At the time, Grandpa owned all of the property on that block, including Chalk Creek, up to and including Archie Robinson's, down by the creek where they raised the melons. John James Mitchell's father, John Galston Mitchell, and his mother, Sarah Augusta Hampton, married in 1882. She was 22 and he was 44. They lived in the Chalk Creek Bottoms, where Grandpa John James Mitchell was born, January 23rd, 1884. When Grandpa was still a baby, a 45-foot wall of water came down from the wash there and washed the house away, and the family moved in with the Dalbys. When Sarah Steele Hampton's mother died, from her father, William Hampton, was left with 5 girls to raise. He couldn't take care of all of them, so he put them up for adoption, and Sarah Augusta Hampton was given to the William Dalbys. She stayed there until she was 11. Grandpa's father, John Galston Mitchell, was killed in a snowslide in Mill Creek while gathering firewood, and Grandpa had a sister, May. I've got some really cool pictures that she sent me also. This is Carrie Hancock and James Mitchell. Look how cool. And then also, I've got original pictures of her first husbands and the babies and the children. Just really cool history. So that's my little story on that today, and we'll continue on next cast with more. Hi, welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to be cooking homemade chicken and dumplings. This is my recipe. I kind of took a twist off of Grandma Ruth's. Very easy, something that you can simmer all day or make up within an hour's time. So the first thing that we need to do is get a list of ingredients, and more or less it's 1 can of chicken broth, and you can make your own chicken broth if you want. 4 cups of water, about 3 to 4. We like the chicken thighs because they're tender and moist. I've always used chicken thighs, never breasts, so I don't know. And then 1/4 cup of onions, celery, and carrots. We're going to add right now. I've got the mixture already boiling, and I've got 3 of the chicken thighs in with the chicken broth. We're going to add the rest of the water. And then add in our vegetables. Little bit of salt, little bit of pepper, and bring it back to a boil. That's what it's going to look like. Bring it to a boil and let it boil for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to add potatoes. So I'll be right back. Okay, next we're going to add in the potatoes while everything's still boiling, even the chicken. I cut up about 2 large potatoes. Just slice them, cube them, however you like. Add a teaspoon of garlic pepper, a teaspoon of seasonal, a 1/2 teaspoon of lemon pepper, and just a shake or 2 of Italian. And then we're going to bring that to a boil till everything's cooked and tender, and then we'll be back to tell you what else to do. And here's the segment from one of our local sponsors. We'd like to thank one of our sponsors, Dirt Road Threads Company, for all their goods that they do for us. We just love the Gunsmoke shirts, and I just ordered 2 different ones more for the boys, and we can't wait to see those. So go to their website, go on Facebook, like their page, and remember to use your Nellie 10 code for 10% off your purchase, and take a look at what we've got. Okay, the chicken is all done, so we cut it up. We're going to add it back in. And then we are going to add 1 heaping spoonful of margarine or butter mixture. That's something Grandma Ruth always did to her soups. And then we're going to let it boil down and cook down a little bit for another 5 minutes, and then we'll add some cornstarch, and I'll show you that mixture. Okay, we've got it on medium heat, boiling. We're going to add some cornstarch, so about 2 tablespoons cornstarch to 1/4 cup of water. Not a lot, because you want it to thicken. And don't worry if you're not sure if the potatoes are done or the carrots are done, because this next part, when we add the dumplings, we still have to cook it for about another 16 minutes, so they'll get done. So as it thickens up, we also add a really weird mixture, but it's good, the Montreal steak. And it adds a little bit of the different spices with some big chunks of black pepper. So as that warms back up and starts to boil, then we add our dumplings. Make sure you've got a lid for your pot because you're going to need them to steam them. Make sure you've got a timer available because you'll need that also. Okay, after that's mixed and thickened, if you guys can see, we're going to add the dumplings, and it's just easy. Use Jiffy mix or Bisquick mix. I prefer Jiffy, can't find it, so we've got Bisquick. About 2 cups of it to a half a cup of milk, give or take, till it looks like this. Not thoroughly mixed, lumpy, but covered. Then you're gonna spoon it teaspoonfuls onto the mixture, and you're gonna cover it with the lid for 8 minutes. So set your timer. We'll be back. Hi, okay. This is what it looks like after 8 minutes. And now we're going to, and I added a little salt and Italian seasoning, pepper on top, not a ton. We're going to add the lid now for another 8 minutes, and then it will be done. And we are on low, medium heat. And also while you're waiting for that to cook, make you a nice green salad to go along with it. I'll show you the finished product in just 8 minutes. Remember to set your timer. And this is the finished product. Why don't you try it out this New Year's Eve or New Year's sometime and enjoy those dumplings. Make sure that you steam them 8 minutes without the lid and 8 minutes with. And you guys have a very merry and happy New Year. From my kitchen to yours. On behalf of our family to yours, we'd like to wish you a very happy New Year's. Be safe and welcome 2022 with all the happiness and health that we can during this season. And we love you. To the moon and stars and back. We'll see you next year.